welcome to the Redacted Apostate podcast. My name is Carl,
I'm Nicole.
and today we're going to talk about Shinrikyo.
Okay.
So it's a Japanese cult, and it's very much in the vein of like Happy Science and their thoughts, their philosophies. But I will have to say that this is probably the most dangerous and scary cult that I have learned about.
Interesting.
I haven't found another cult that was so close to causing huge swath of death and destruction.
Wow.
Not just in Japan, but across the world as well. So as we get into this cult and where they got to in their philosophies and as well as, their reach, you start to realize how scary they really are.
And I know people in Japan hate them.
Well, they hated them to begin with. So these were the kind of people, they were like almost like Hare Krishnas. They would hang out in public.
Oh, really? They're proselytizers.
Oh, huge.
Interesting.
Huge. So, and a lot of the stuff that we discuss is you're gonna see like deja vu when it comes to Happy Science.
Mm-hmm.
So they also tried to run for prime minister, and at one point they had 24 people within their cult running for office at the same time.
What's the origin of their name?
So Shirinkyo is like the divine truth.
Okay.
I believe that is the name of it. And it's one of those words, supreme truth. But it's also one of those words that can kind of have different meanings. But I think supreme truth is where everybody has kind of come to, like, this matches translations the best. So it could be like the supreme truth, supreme happiness, supreme so it's all these different kind of connotations.
Yeah.
But ultimately supreme truth kind of matches the best translation that we can come up with for a Japanese to English translation.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So let's talk about the leader of this cult, the guy who founded Shirinkyo. And his name is Matsumoto Shizo. So that's his name that he was born. And he was born half blind. So a lot of people say that he's the blind leader of Shirinkyo, and he was not. He was blind in one eye, and he had poor vision in the other.
Okay.
So he could see people, but not well. So there was...
But they played that up as to...
Huge.
Okay.
Huge. And then so when you see him being wheeled in, because he's the blind prophet, great. But you can see him in other shots too, walking down the street and, going around people just fine. So he could see people. But yeah, he definitely brought a lot of any of his innate talents or innate negatives. He would use that to prove his divine power and his divine influence, like constantly.
Yeah.
And he was a smart kid when growing up. So he even with his disabilities,
Did he have more than just one disability?
No, but not being able to see was kind of a big deal, especially when you grow up. Because I mean, you're looking at, I think, the 1950s or 1950s is when he was born, I would say. I actually don't know how old he was. I didn't care to look up too much about his early life. But his charisma definitely showed through.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, he would use his charisma.
Was he a plus 20 charisma?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I've actually never heard him speak. He was on TV a ton, so he had to have had some kind of charisma to be on TV that much.
Yes. So, and remember too that you're translating, Japanese into English, so you're just hearing tones and intonation. You don't know how he's saying words.
Mm-hmm.
But from everything that I saw, he speaks very well. And he's definitely playing it, like, into his divine holiness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's an ASMR master. When you watch someone like Happy Science speak, you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, sure, but that guy had no charisma.
Mm-hmm.
His was all ideals, where Om Shrinkyo was ideals and charisma
Mm-hmm.
as well.
How many members did he have at his peak?
So at his
Hang on.
peak, yeah.
Pause. Okay.
That's a great question, and nobody really has an answer to that.
Okay.
100,000 maybe?
Oh, wow.
Maybe. The thing about it is that there's almost two different types of follower in Om Shrinkyo. So there's the majority of his followers, which they lived a certain way, but then you had this core like lieutenants, and those were the death squads, basically.
Wow. How many lieutenants did he have?
Unknown again.
Okay.
I know how many died, but I think there was such a stigma with anything related to Shrinkyo after 1995, especially after 1995, after the subway sarin attacks. But even before that, there's other things that occurred that people were already starting to view that was directly related to, like, murders and
Mm-hmm.
other things that were going on.
Right.
And there was a lot going on. So there's a lot to cover, and I've been trying to figure out how the best way, because there's so much disjointed kind of information. You know, I watched a whole documentary, and they didn't include like 5 or 6 of the biggest key points about the organization. That was BBC. So there's even for big news organizations, I don't think they've really wrapped their head around how big this organization was and how scary they really were. So, so he was smart enough. He had like scholarships that he could have done. He like, they were talking about he could have been a lawyer, banker, doctor easily, like without even much. Probably not a doctor, maybe not a surgeon. I think the eyesight issue would have been an issue, but he could have gone into medicine. And he decided that he was going to become an acupuncturist. So
that's a weird skill for.
It's a really weird skill.
Huh.
And what that shows is even at an early age, he was kind of not looking fondly on where Japan was in modern society. So the cult really wanted to separate itself from the time period, especially with Japan. Japan was an economic powerhouse during this time.
Right, in the 80s and early 90s, yeah. Right.
And this was the same time that Happy Science came about for the exact same reasons. So there was is a movement called the New Religious Movement, where you had a lot of these religions come about, and it was in direct opposition of Japan losing its cultural identity, because where before your life was devoted towards a religious goal, bringing oneself up, the Buddhist philosophies and the Taoist philosophies, that all went away. And the new god was consumerism and money.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people within Japan were disillusioned during that time, and they were looking for that kind of,
spiritual fulfillment.
Right.
Because they were not getting it from the pursuit of
national identity as well. They were losing their national identity because that wasn't how Japan has always been for thousands of years.
Which is not really true.
It is not really true. But it's that romantic version of how you see things.
Right.
It's like the patriot movement that's going on currently in the United States. It's the same thing. It's this romanticized version, but be willing to bet that people that would live back in that time would think that was horrible and just not a nice way to live in society. They'd want their air conditioning and internet back, quickly,
Right.
because that's really what we want. I mean, that's what I want. So in February 1984, that's when Matsumoto, he also did change his name to Asahara Shoko. And I do not know what that means. It might not mean anything. But knowing him, there's probably a deeper meaning to his name.
Maybe he went on a spirit quest and came up with that name.
He might have. He was, if anything you could say about him, he was definitely devoted and an expert on the different religions of Japan.
Hmm.
And that this new religious movement, they all seem to have the same core. So it was like Christianity, Buddhism, Shintoism, a little bit of Taoism, Hinduism, all rolled up into one. So then they would just kind of pick the different aspects that they wanted. So he seemed to pick the ones that were most related to control.
Mm-hmm.
And spirituality and inner peace. He was big on that. Using the teachings of Buddhism to attain enlightenment and spiritual wellness, and so that's how he started. And he would go on the talk shows and talk about like, we need to not worry about money. We need to worry about our spiritual well-being. So money should be secondary, and yeah, it's a good rallying cry, and you could see how a lot of people could be pulled to that, especially
in that time period where spirituality was on the decline,
right?
And people were feeling disillusioned, maybe left out from the monetary explosion that was happening.
Exactly, and you could also see too how that simple. You start with a simple idea, which is money bad, spirituality good.
Mm-hmm.
Going to spirituality great, money horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have money, you can increase your spirituality.
Uh-huh.
And how do you not have money? You give it to the cult.
Right. So it's othering society. It's separating them, making them feel superior, and then making it easier for the members to do something bad, which they eventually did.
100%. Yes.
Like they deserved it. Like all the company men that ride the train to their offices deserve to lose their life.
Because they're indoctrinated into the cult of capitalism.
Right.
Yep. The other thought is this is where it's like Happy Science but not, is that there was going to be, let's all say it together, a nuclear strike on Japan. This time from America. So Happy Science thought that America was going to save them. Shrinkyo, America was going to be the ones that devastated Japan. And you can also see too,
there's history.
Exactly.
It's happened before.
So why couldn't it happen again? And they're just biding their time. America was just waiting to obliterate Japan. And especially, I mean, he has his points, which was America was the economic powerhouse, and now Japan is. Now's the time to get rid of them. Get rid of your competition using a nuclear strike.
Mm-hmm.
It has a basis. Again, it's that nugget of truth. It's that basis of reality that you can pervert and move your, wherever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he definitely doubled down on that. That America was going to destroy Japan.
So they had to destroy. Part of their tenets was we have to destroy America first.
No. Part of their tenets was that, that by someone dying, it saved them from, if you're dead, you can't get attacked by the nuclear Armageddon that's going to happen.
Ooh.
Yes.
That,
Again, really dangerous.
Yep.
really dangerous. So, uh, and the only people that would survive are the members of Om Shrinkyo. So it's conversion or death.
Mm-hmm.
And in death,
And I would convert.
we're saving you.
I would convert. No,
You might not actually with this one.
a lot of religions at their core believe that,
Mhm.
but they know they can enact something like that
Yes.
based on the laws in most countries.
Yes.
But a lot of religions have that type of teaching.
Yep. And the thing that to remember about this, this is, I mean, it's only what 30, 40 years after Japan was, devastated by American nuclear weapons and forced onto this new constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And part of this was the MacArthur making sure that Japan had freedom of religion.
Mm-hmm.
And more specifically, it was even more draconian than that, is that Japan could not interfere with any religions.
Yeah, because it was a weird time period. There were definitely cults back then,
Mhm.
but not like we've seen
Right. And
recently.
and before that it was a nationally approved single religion.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the leaders of the country said was the way that everybody had to believe. Not
Mhm.
believe, I take that back. Worship.
Mm-hmm.
Because belief is one thing, and we know about all the Protestants, and we've all seen Shogun. So
Right. Right.
But that all stems from kind of that, and then after the fall of Hirohito, then the new constitution was formed, and in it is very specifically you cannot. I'm trying to think of the right word for this. You cannot do anything against a religion that at all. Like you cannot look down on it. You can't say anything about it. So there was a really hands off when it came to these different religions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was the one thing, is that I believe they never quite got to the happy science where they were an approved religion.
And said all religions you have the freedom of religion,
Mm-hmm.
but then you said there has to be an approval process for religion. So-
Right. Same thing we have in America. So,
Oh, you mean for tax purposes? But
and
you can.
yes,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But even for religious groups that were not fully formed, like I don't have approval from the Japanese government that I am a real religion with all the tax breaks and
Uh-huh.
and assistance as well. There's still a really hands-off touch, and that's why you see so many of these cults forming. I don't even know how many there are in Japan. There's probably hundreds of these different cults. So yeah, and just for the approval, again, it's the same thing that we in America have to do certain things. There's certain guidelines before you can be viewed as a religion and you get tax exempt status. So it's just not that you could say I'm a religion and you get tax exempt status. There are guidelines that you have to follow.
Okay.
Same thing, and they're probably really damn close to the way they are in Japan as well.
Okay.
Don't know. I think that's a whole other rabbit hole that I would have to follow.
Yeah.
Okay, so so at this time, he's done the acupuncture thing. He studied there. He's studying all of these religions, and he's making himself into this guru, this Buddhist kind of guru that
Mm-hmm.
has the answers. And he's going on these different shows. He's talking to different celebrities. He's meeting with the Dalai Lama. Again, he's building the credibility that makes it even harder for different organizations to look down on him
Mm-hmm.
as well. So, and the members that he's getting, this is when things like he does not waste time. He immediately just starts indoctrination techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all based off of like meditative principles taking to the nth degree.
Right. That is what they did at the program.
Mm.
That the kids that were separated, they
Yeah.
they had them meditating for days straight and
Yes.
things like that.
Yeah, same thing here. So, and he would have recordings going on in the background of Asahara chanting over and over again, believe, 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 believe,
While they were-
believe, while
they
they're
were
meditating for
sleep
hours.
deprived and
Yeah.
Wow.
And you hear the video, like I heard the audio, and it is like I started to believe after 5 minutes. So, you know, we're not gonna talk about that one. But like, you can see that that bringing down that's the lighter end of the story. That is just plain old brainwashing techniques. So the other thing too is one of the advanced techniques of someone that has gone through outside of Amshrinkyo, just meditative techniques or maybe Buddhist meditative techniques. I'm not sure where this lies. Was that they would tie a rope on their feet. The person would do this to themselves. They would tie a rope around their
Is
foot.
this in Shintoism or Buddhism?
I don't know. I think it's Buddhism. I'm not sure. And then they would, hang themselves upside down and meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the ability to control the blood flow so that it's not all rushing to your head and you don't pass out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So after a month of going through these things, they would put all of their people, force them to do this technique.
Wow.
To learn. And they had a kid die.
Yeah. They had children do this technique. Wow.
Yeah. So one of the kids died and they immediately cremated him, got rid of the remains and buried it basically.
Wow.
The other one too, and this was the good one, is that part of the process is they had these boxes that were buried underground, and they would put like 10 people in for a week and bury them in an airtight container. And basically, you would have to meditate to lower your airflow to survive.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can imagine after being underground, no lights, no bathroom facilities, with 20 other people in a small box, about the size of this room.
Wow.
And the only way you could survive is if you were able to lower your breathing.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like one of the videos that I saw was this guy coming out of the thing and just the glazed over look, but happy.
Yeah.
And you saw the face that came out and it was just fully they were
indoctrinated. They're done.
He was a nuclear physicist.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were forming a cult where you thought that by killing a lot of people, you could save them, what is the one person you would want on your team?
A nuclear physicist.
A nuclear physicist. What also helped too is if you had chemical engineers that were specifically, their background was on the creation of
Wow.
nerve agents and
So
sarin
he
gas.
went for highly educated, certain skilled people and then actively recruited them.
Yep. This is where it differs from a lot of the groups. He only went mid-level and above.
Mm-hmm.
So he did not care about the lower class. Didn't want them in the group. If they wanted to join, they would, but his bread and butter was upper middle class.
Educated.
scientist educated.
Wow.
Yeah. And uh, when they did bring in the people and he got them fully indoctrinated, he would have them, of course, pretty standard scenario, give up all of their possessions, sign everything over to them. Where he differed was that he would teach the members how to trick other family members into giving away their property rights as well. So you had people that have had their whole life savings taken away from their children and grandchildren and aunts and uncles and everybody else through trickery.
Wow.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
He had a lot of money then.
Yeah. He during the height of Shinrikyo, he was valued at over $1 billion.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. So let's talk about what they did. All right. So
what did they do?
So November 1989, some of people that were disillusioned quickly or didn't join, they started to talk to the Japanese ministry about, like, these people are cults. This is a cult, and they are basically brainwashing people to give up all the worldly possessions.
Right. So some people started to raise awareness. They woke up and they started raising awareness.
Or just from the beginning, or like, this is BS. Never got indoctrinated from the beginning. But I think the majority of them were, like a few was like woke up and left and talked. And so there was a lawyer named Sakamoto Tsusumi, and he was a lawyer that was specialist in anti-cult activities within the Japanese government. And so he started to do research on the cult, trying to get more information, seeing, like, what are you guys actually doing? So in November of 1989, the Shinrikyo members went to his home, killed him, killed his wife, and their 1-year-old son. And their bodies weren't found for 6 years.
Oh my God. Were people looking for them, or they didn't even know they?
Oh yeah.
How'd they hide their bodies?
I don't know. So the one thing about information is in Japan is that they have huge rights for individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So finding information about people is very, very difficult to do. So the most you will usually hear about something is they didn't find their bodies, or this person was killed, they didn't find their bodies. That's
right. And murder's not very common in Japan.
Murder's not very common in Japan at all. Yeah. So that was their first real big thing. And I think in between this, this was around the same time that they killed like 3 or 4 members in the group.
For trying to escape?
No, they thought that they might try to escape.
Mm.
So it wasn't even that they tried, it was that they suspected that they might.
Mm-hmm. They were getting disillusioned.
Disillusioned, yep. And then also cremated their bodies and dumped it in the lake. Dumped the remains in the lake.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so in 1993, they began construction of a facility in the village of Kamikushiki, and the facility is not completed, but the cult does succeed in making supplies of sarin for use. Okay, so they created in autumn of 1993, they created a facility that was making sarin gas. And what happens is that people start to smell it, and so the cops were called, said, there's this weird smell coming from this area, can you guys go check it out? And the police were like, yeah, we'll go out right now and go check it out. By the time they got there, the facility was cleaned out.
They were tipped off.
By who? This is important. By the police.
Oh.
The cult members are in the police.
Uh-huh. That whole Fight Club thing going on.
They had cult members in the police, in the government. That's how they found out about the lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like one of those stories that goes all the way to the top, baby.
Yeah.
Other than the prime minister. So all throughout government.
So he was really strategic in the way that he was looking for his members. And then he would strategically go after the members, give them, because we all have our weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
go after their weaknesses, recruit them, and then mind control them.
Yep.
That's some CIA shit right
Yeah.
there.
Well, he would make them drink his blood.
Mm.
And you could buy his bathwater as a healing agent.
Isn't that whole like PayPal scandal? She finally got her money.
Did she really?
Yeah, she finally got her money from PayPal
That's too funny.
for selling her bathwater. It like happened in the last month or so.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, and there was a lot of other things too. Like he had, the virtual healings. If you got his audio, his CD, and just listened to it, you would be healed.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to think this has only been 9 years. So he started the group. 9 years later, they're making sarin gas.
Wow.
In a facility.
So what led to that psychopathy though for him to want to kill other people?
I again felt that he's one of those true believers. That
He really believed that if they're dead, then we save them from nuclear annihilation.
yeah, like if you look at the history of Japan, where we've like if I was a Japanese person, where have we been? Where have we gotten to? And why are we here? And what caused it? Who caused it?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have someone basically saying, yeah, it was all caused by these people. And I have the answers, and it's religious. It's this religious fervor that we used to do, and we were better people for it.
Mm-hmm.
Make Japan great again, basically.
Right.
And so, yeah, I really feel that what he foresaw was going to come true. That, he probably had a moment where he witnessed something or, didn't eat enough food for a couple of days and,
Mm-hmm.
because he would go through these, meditation that would take weeks, and like probably also went through fasting and stuff like that. And it's just, who knows what he saw. Yeah.
Is he just Japan's most hated man? Is there somebody that Japan hates more than this guy?
Yeah, he might be. He might be the Japan's most hated person. I could see that, and the way that because they're still around.
Really?
Yeah, they're still around. Aleph is still around. There's actually two groups. Aleph is one of them, and there's two. So there's two different.
What does Aleph mean?
I have no idea.
I think
No idea. But they were basically taken over by some of the cult members that had left the Aum Shinrikyo groups. And their whole philosophy is that where we came from was so awful. And we want to change all that. We want to make, we want to live a life of peace, and that's all we want. We like, hey, we're sorry, but we want peace, and we want to show you how peaceful we can be.
Mm-hmm.
Until someone infiltrated their building and found a shrine to the leader.
Mm-hmm. Aleph is the first alphabet in the Hebrew. The first letter in the Hebrew alphabet.
Just weird disconnect there. Why he? Okay. Anyways, we'll we'll ignore that one. But yeah, and so there was a group in Japan that they found out that there were Aleph members, and basically went and like, you need to get rid of these people. So they had all of the citizens around like, these people need to leave. We don't want them in our town. And the government, they had government people from the local government there. They're like, there's nothing we can do. They bought the land. They're not doing anything there that's illegal, so we can't just kick them out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, people don't want them anywhere.
Yeah.
There was a group that tried to move to Montenegro, and they were kicked out by the government. And there, they can kick them out.
Mm-hmm.
So they did.
In Uruguay or Paraguay?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And there's also still groups in Russia that exist. They were just on the news recently.
Really?
There's that. Yeah, they're all over. They're still kind of all over. So the one interview that I saw was they were interviewing the wife of it was a man who worked for the railroad, the subway, Japanese subway, and he was like kind of the manager of the facility.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was trying to clean up the packets for the sarin gas, and he died right there on the scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, she found out that there are ALIF members in her building where she lives.
Oh my goodness.
She's like, I don't sleep anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how perverse this is that these people have suffered. Thousands of people suffered because of this, and there's people that still have the symptoms today.
Mm-hmm. It left them permanently damaged.
Yeah.
The ones
Some
who
got
survived.
over some of the symptoms, some didn't. A lot of people blinded.
So what happened, in case somebody doesn't know? Like, what happened?
We're gonna. I'm still doing the timeline. I think
Okay.
we should get back to that, because then that leads into some other information as
Okay.
well. So, because in June of 1994, they released sarin in another district, where they had a modified truck that was driving around the streets, releasing sarin gas from.
Oh
the
my
truck.
goodness.
Yeah.
And where was this?
So this was in Matsumoto, which is in Nagano Prefecture.
Wow.
And 8 people were killed there and hundreds were injured in that attack.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And you could actually see in the security footage that they had. And remember, at the time, Japan was not big on security footage. They did not have CC.
That's funny compared to where we are. Like, there's no place you could go in Japan nowadays without being recorded.
That is because of them.
Yeah.
It's because of them.
Wow.
So before, there might have been 1 for every 3 or 4 blocks, and now there's like 10 for every block.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was specifically because of Aum Shinrikyo.
So they went
that
to
started
They went to this small city,
Mhm.
and they were trying to eradicate this city.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing.
I think they were doing a lot of tests as well,
Wow.
because the truck worked, and it gets good. It's really scary good. The people in Matsumoto had opposed the construction of their office, and then shortly after they gassed everybody.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't just for any, it was, to get back at them. And then in February 1995, they kidnapped Kariya Kiyoshi, brother to a wealthy woman who has escaped the cult, to force him to reveal her whereabouts. They imprisoned him in the compound before killing him with an overdose of anesthetics and destroying his corpse.
Wow.
So they were just trying to find someone who left. And
So once you got in, you could not leave, or
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
the police are now like, too much has gone on that the police that were part of the cult couldn't cover up anymore. I mean, they really wanted to figure out what their involvement was. So there was a national kind of sting that was trying to show that Aum Shinrikyo was actually part of the killings, part of the sarin gas.
Mhm.
And they started to track them down. And this led us to March 20th, 1995, where they did the sarin gas attack on the Tokyo subway system.
And that's because of that the police were starting to connect the dots and figure out what they were doing.
So why don't we just start killing people now, and then we can start our revolution or whatever it is that they were the end goal. And the thing about it, this is the scary part. Everybody kind of looks at this as the final, like this happened and they got arrested. This was their dry run. This was not the attack. The attack failed. This was the dry run that succeeded.
Wow.
So, so the idea was that each of the members had these 2 packets of these liquids that whenever, and they were on top of each other, and when you punctured them through, the chemical reaction would create sarin gas. Sarin gas has a little chemical smell to it, so you can tell it's there, but it's hard to pinpoint. You wouldn't smell it and just be like, oh my God, something's totally wrong. And just be like, someone poured something out, or, it's not so bad that you would be panicking to get out of there. So they had those packets wrapped around with newspaper, and each one had a umbrella. So nothing unusual to be, on the commute. They put the packets down, and right before they left, they stabbed it and then walked off the subway. So this chemical smell started to come out. Everybody was breathing it in, and so people were like, "Well, get this thing off of here; it stinks." So people were lifting it up, moving it to other areas, and worse was the tunnels were filling up with the gas as they were driving, as the train was moving along. So as soon as they realized something was wrong, they stopped the trains, everybody got out, and they're in the tunnels with the sarin gas.
Yeah.
So their exposure was still there. So one of the popular opinions is that they had to have been like chemical masterminds to be able to make sarin gas like they did, and they weren't. They knew the basic chemistry, but they didn't have the equipment to make weaponized sarin gas. If they did, everybody in the tunnels would have been dead.
Right.
It would have been hundreds of thousands, not 13. So the fact that they were bad at making the sarin gas was the only thing that kept the body counts down. But their goal was to make weaponized sarin gas. So they were working with other governments to get facilities and equipment to further that along, specifically Russia.
Right, because this was right at the fall of the Russian economy, where you could get pretty much anything out of Russia.
Wanted.
Yeah. That's really terrifying.
Like,
because that's where the drug dealers were getting those things from Russia that they never had access to before, because Russia was just everyone was just trying to survive.
Do you think it'd be scary if got their hands on, let's say, a Russian attack helicopter?
Oh yeah, because then they could drop
because they did.
From the sky.
And they had it in Japan.
Really?
They were able to buy a Russian attack helicopter and secretly bring it into Japan.
Wow.
At a facility.
Wow.
These people are dangerous.
Yeah.
All right. So
they up to this point, so far they killed a child through their practices. That wasn't on purpose, but through their practices.
Well, and remember, this is what we know.
What we know.
I can imagine it was probably a lot more than that.
And then they killed a lawyer and his family because he was a cult investigator. And then they killed a man because his sister had escaped and they were trying to get her back.
Yep.
And then in 1995,
they killed 13 people.
They killed 13
in
people.
In the Tokyo subway, and injured 4,000 more.
Okay, through the sarin gas.
Yeah, through blindness and lung problems. And you list the problem, and they had it. It was horrible.
And that was in direct response to the government starting to investigate
Mhm.
them. Okay.
Yep. It was right before this. They bought a sheep farm in Australia. It was such a weird thing to buy a sheep farm in
Mm-hmm.
Australia. Um, and so the people that were in this area, it was way out in the in the outback, so
Yeah.
far away from anybody. But the locals that did live there, said that these people are walking around in like protective gear, and they were like, what the hell is going on out there? And they were testing sarin gas on the sheep. They were
Hmm.
killing sheep by the hundreds out
Wow.
there. More importantly, it wasn't the sheep. It was what was underneath the building. It's a uranium mine.
Oh my goodness. They bought a uranium mine. Wow.
So when they went to go investigate, there was equipment there for uranium processing.
Oh my goodness. It's like a video game. Wow.
Yeah. You want to talk about scary. Like, the more you start to dig into these people, the more you're like, these people weren't dangerous to their own members, which that's bad enough, but they wanted to destroy Japan and then I would say probably the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think that he wanted to bring it into society. Again, it's that self-fulfilling prophecy that, well, the world's going to end by a nuclear strike. Really? Well, why do you think so? Well, I'm creating a nuclear bomb to kill everybody by a
Right.
nuclear strike. So,
Right,
yeah, I think
so
it's going to happen.
The fallout. They're building their underground bunkers, and
Yeah,
so they caused the bomb to go off.
absolutely. Yep. And that was, I believe, their intent. Okay. But that's bad. 100% that's bad. But there were other bombs. And when I say bombs, there were sarin gas bombs.
Oh my goodness.
So what they realized was that, yes, that works, but it's limited because of the ability to move the package around. So what they did was they actually had sarin gas bombs that they placed inside of the air conditioning systems at major train depots all over Japan.
Oh my goodness.
I think there was 10 of them, and one of them, just one, had enough sarin gas. It might have been the VX nerve agent. No, it was the VX. So they had VX, they had sarin, they had like a bunch of other nerve agents that they were creating, but this one had VX in it, and it had enough VX to kill 100,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
In the train station.
So they put him in there.
Yep. And they failed.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
All of them except for one. I think only one went off, and that was the one in because there was another train depot that got gassed as well. We don't hear much about that one. So there was actually two trains that successfully went off. Nobody died in the second one. Because it like went off at the wrong time or something, but it did actually go off.
Wow.
But the other ones, they found all these packages and all of these, like in the air conditioning systems, like in strategic places, and where the timer was at 0, but nothing happened.
Wow.
So they just didn't go off. So that saved 200,000-300,000 people's lives probably, because I believe they were all going to go off at the same time. And yeah, they even tried distributing anthrax from by dropping them from helicopters.
Wow.
Yeah, it just keeps going and keeps going, and I'm sure I'm leaving out probably a ton of stuff too.
Wow.
Because like I said, you try to find information and you have to go down these rabbit holes to get a full picture.
And because these people are so thoroughly brainwashed, like just as the worst kind of brainwashing you go through, they'll do anything.
Yeah, and remember what I said, you have these two groups of people, right? So you have the lieutenants, and then you have everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else was like, this didn't happen. This we don't believe that this ever could have happened because he's talking about peace and love and
Mm-hmm.
everything
That's
else.
the rank and file.
Right. So this is obviously the government, just picking on him.
Mm-hmm.
And you can ignore all the other stuff, and that's what people do is,
It's cognitive dissonance.
cognitive dissonance. Exactly right. So the other thing that happened too was that he was found. Let's get back to that because there were 12 disciples that were involved directly in the sarin gas attack.
That were his direct lieutenants.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So all 12 of them and him were arrested, and he was actually in a secret chamber in that compound. He was actually they walled him in so they couldn't be found, but they found him and pulled him out. And
That's, remember when they found Keith Raniere? He was hiding in Mexico in a closet.
yeah, same thing. But think about Keith Raniere breaking himself up into a wall. Same thing. Yeah, and then the Tokyo District Court orders the dissolution of Shinrikyo. So I do think they actually got their stamp of approval from the Japanese government. I think it was a long time. Like it was back in the 80s. So, and then February 2000, the group officially renames itself Aleph. And in 2004, the Tokyo District Court sentenced Matsumoto to death. And of course, his legal team appeals the decision, and they dismissed his appeal 6 years later. Blah, blah, blah. This is all stuff about oh, here you go. Joyu leaves Aleph. Joyu was the spokesperson for Shinrikyo. He was arrested, but later released because he didn't have any direct ties to any of the crimes. He was just their spokesperson. And he was the one that formed Aleph. He left Aleph and they formed a new group called Hikari no Wa, which means the Ring of Light. So
is he a new cult leader?
Yeah,
He's the new cult leader.
And in 2012, they actually finally captured the last two suspects.
Oh wow!
So they were on the run for 17 years. It took them 17 years to capture the final masterminds of the sarin gas attack. And then they Yamada Masako, who is another former member, he leaves Aleph and he forms another group. So there's now three of these groups around, and
they all have the core of that on Shinrikyo basis.
Yep.
So, and the mind conditioning. So they most definitely could become cults on their own. Maybe not to the extreme where they want to kill other people, but it's hard to know.
Yeah. Well, all of them are under almost constant surveillance.
Can you imagine that job? You're right out of college. Your job
is to watch these guys.
Is to join that cult. And it's like, ugh.
Yeah. And July 6th, 2018, Matsumoto and 6 of his followers on death row are executed in the early morning hours.
Wow, I didn't know Japan had a death penalty.
Yeah, they hung them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Asahara's remains are burned at a crematorium in Tokyo, and the Ministry of Justice is preparing to hand his ashes over to one of the daughters, despite concerns that the focus of further cult activities. Yeah, that's still... So that was 2018, and they still haven't turned over his ashes.
It's complicated.
It's very complicated.
Because they would enshrine him.
Yep.
By doing that.
Yep. Then you just dump it down the toilet.
Yeah.
And just be done with it. Yeah. So there's still members in the Ukraine and in Russia. They're kind of all over, and the fact that they are still so secretive about their comings and goings. I mean, there's like it's two-sided coin, right? One side that if you were still in a group that was tied to like such atrocities, then yeah, you'd hide what you're doing. But then there's the other side of it. Just find another group that isn't, tied to these atrocities. That means that the belief is still there.
Yeah.
And it's strong.
And dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Very dangerous.
Yeah. In 2022, there was video of like showing they're still worshiping under his images.
And are they still making the gas? Are they still, what's the status of the property in Australia?
Oh yeah, that was all shut down. So shortly after this, there was a worldwide shutdown of all of their facilities that they know about. So yeah, the Australian one was shut down. There's nobody there now. All the ones in Japan were shut down. All of the ones in Russia were shut down. The police. There's like pictures of like there's 50 or 60 police vehicles, coming onto the compound at the same time.
Wow.
So it was a huge movement. And it makes you wonder how many people inside of those police cars were members of Aum Shinrikyo cult.
Yeah. And if they still believe or where they're at.
Yeah. This one was kind of alluding to the 1995 attack was due to the police putting pressure on Aum Shinrikyo. I think that it was after their failed bid for the government run.
Mm-hmm.
So they had 24 people running for different various offices around Japan with the idea that they would win, all 24, and then place Aum Shinrikyo as prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
That was their goal.
Yeah.
But everybody hated them at that point.
Yeah.
Even before the sarin gas attack, everybody hated them. So
because they were preaching in the subway.
Oh, a bunch of things. Yeah. Yeah. And, gassing neighborhoods and, murdering children and lawyers. So.
How come they didn't catch them when they gassed the neighborhood?
Because they were able to move out and the police were, it was their own members doing the investigation on the cult. So They're like, oh yeah, we got there. Everything's gone. And we couldn't find any evidence. Thank you very much. Bye. That's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Same thing with the murders and everything else. And again, it's also these people disappeared. Our thought in America would be, oh yeah, they got kidnapped and murdered. In Japan, I don't think that's the initial thought is they got kidnapped and murdered.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was something happened, like they drove off of a cliff or something, or drowned or something else, but not that. That's my guess. I have no speculation on. I can't put myself into the mindset of a person in Japan, but I would imagine that if
murder would be the last thing.
Kidnapping, murder, yeah, that
especially a toddler, a baby,
and a lawyer too. Like I don't think that happens often in Japan, very much at all.
Well, it doesn't happen very often in the States. When it does, it makes big news.
Big news. Yep. But if the whole family went missing, yeah, we kind of just go, yeah, there's something wrong. Something happened to them.
Yeah, it'd be big news here.
Yep. So you have 24 candidates running for office in Japan. How many votes do you think they got?
Is this like Trump votes? Real or not real?
Real votes. Real votes.
I don't know. Let's say 50,000.
Right. So if you think that at that time, I think they said something like 10 to 20,000, like members in Aum Shinrikyo. So you'd imagine at least 20,000, right? 1,200.
Oh my goodness!
For all 24.
They didn't even vote for themselves.
Right. Right. So that was probably what precipitated the 1995 attack on them.
And that probably is the real number of
10 to 20,000.
Of people that are part of this cult.
Yeah. Anytime you talk numbers of a cult, I don't believe you
No.
immediately. Like, it's either less or more. It's typically more. The number's always more than what they say. But, like we've ran into some cults lately. It's like, oh, there was only 4. Well, it might have been 10 or 12 now. There are some groups that don't want to have their numbers known.
Mm-hmm. And then most of them, though, overinflate their numbers.
Right. Because it adds
credibility.
Thank you. Yeah. It adds credibility to the group. Like, look, we've got 1 million members.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Happy Science. And the other thing to remember, too, is that this group also made their own animes.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a huge back and forth between Shrinkyo and Happy Science, where Shrinkyo put a VX Nerve agent device in his car, into the air conditioning of his car. And that one also failed to ignite.
Oh, wait. So one cult leader tried to kill another cult leader?
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
And failed?
And failed. Yep.
Dumbass.
But their beliefs were so intertwined. Like, it's really weird, like, how much they intertwine. But it was like the core is the same, but then everything after that is just, they both go into their own off the wall craziness. Where Matsumoto kept saying that the leader of Happy Science knew nothing about Buddhism, which was true, and didn't understand meditation, didn't understand the concept of not pursuing pleasure, whether it be sexual or anything of this earth, where Happy Science was just like, whatever.
Yeah, they're all about the
pleasures. Yeah. But the cores were both the same. So they both came from the same idea, and they went 2 totally different directions.
Mm-hmm.
But
one became a fun, happy cult, and one became a scary, dangerous murder cult.
Yeah. I personally think that Happy Science was looking at Shrinkyo as what we're not going to do, because they got caught. So we want our numbers to grow and we want money, but we don't want to tip our hand too quickly on what our the end goal is. Because what's the end goal of Happy Science?
To be happy.
To smile more.
To smile more.
I don't know if it's to be happy, but it's just
smile
not.
More.
It's to not have bad thoughts.
Talk less
And smile more.
Smile more.
Yeah. So after hearing all that, would you agree that, like, this is like the most dangerous cult that we know of? Like, what would you put in front of a cult that wanted to make a uranium bomb?
Yeah. It does. It feels like it's a storyline out of a video game. Like, it doesn't feel real.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't.
Like, it shouldn't be real. Couldn't be real.
Couldn't be real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also one thing to listen to authorities of a country, and there's another thing to have interviews with the farmers that were in Australia. And as soon as they're saying, yes, we saw them and they were weird, they were really weird people. And like, oh yeah, well, where were they? Oh, that old uranium mine. It's like, okay.
Wow.
And then when you start seeing, kind of the receipts from Russia, where they're supplying uranium processing machines.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, what do you do with uranium? There's not much you do with uranium other than turn it into a weapon.
Yep.
For them, anyways.
Yep. Wow. Yeah. Dangerous, and understandably why he's one of the most hated people in Japan, and why people hate this group.
Because if you think all it would have taken is one of their bombs to work, one, and they would have had the highest death count of any cult.
Yep. Or if any of those nerve agent things actually went off.
That's what I mean. If one worked, that's all it would take is if one of them in those air conditioning ducts went off, this would be a totally different conversation.
Right.
It was, and I don't want to make light of this situation. It was only 12. I mean,
It could have been much
it
worse.
could have been much worse. And that's what their plan was, is for much worse.
Right. Do you think the members that are still there, do you think it's that lost? There's a phrase in marketing or economists say that,
FOMO?
yeah, it's FOMO. It's like the fallacy of sunken costs or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I've given so much, like I was buried. I did the upside down meditation. I've given so much, I can't leave now.
Well, yeah. And you also, after selling off your family's, wealth and their livelihood for the rest of their lives, and, you have people on the street who are actively spitting on you because their family member is blind due to the sarin gas. You can't re-enter, civilization again, society again, even
Yeah.
if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But the videos that I saw, these people did not look like old cult members. They look like new.
Interesting.
A lot of the old cult members, they interviewed a few of them. And so there's lines that kind of always stick out to me whenever I do research. And it was this one guy. He was like, he had nothing because he gave everything away. So he had to rebuild his life from scratch again. And they asked him, well, what do you think about when you were in the group? And he's like, it was the happiest I've ever been. And all I want every day is to go back.
Wow.
Because I didn't have to think for myself.
Yep.
And I'm like,
That's
it
it.
is. So everything that you needed was just taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
You just show up. You don't need to worry about job and taxes anymore. You just help with whatever needs to be helped, and you get fed, and you have a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And 24/7 of you just making sure you fulfill your spiritual needs. That's it.
Wow.
So that's what got them in.
It's a good place to end.
I think so too. Well, yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. I still feel that this is one of the most dangerous cults that has ever existed and still does exist, and I think that's what makes it even more dangerous. So, thanks for watching. I'm Carl,
Nicole,
and think for yourself. Don't be a sheep.
don't be sheep. Think for yourself. Don't be